Have been in the nation's capital all day. We're back outside on the Northern Virginia side. We're in the motor coach, and I don't know if you guys can hear the weather or not, but we got back just in time to avoid a watershed washdown here. We're getting just dumped on us, so I don't know if you can hear that on the motor coach or not. Boy, what a day we had. We're going to go to some video footage. We are going to give you a tour of the White House press briefing room, the Brady press briefing room, named after the former press secretary for Ronald Reagan, who was wounded seriously in the attempted assassination of President Reagan, which I think was March of 1981. Then we're going to give you a little tour outside the West Wing, all where the media sets up, the mainstream media, on the north lawn and the exit on out to the White House. So we'll show you all that here in a little tour. We were at the White House today. We have press passes to go for the rest of the week, so we'll probably stop in there a few more times. Then we went on up to Capitol Hill, where we interviewed Congressman Glenn Grothman, who's a regular guest here on this broadcast. Also was with us live at our Milwaukee Waukesha Worldview rally a few weeks ago to a packed house. We visited with him. We visited with Senator Ron Johnson. We talked about Building 7. We talked about 9/11 and Building 7 and how he came to show great interest in this. And then we interviewed U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville. He, of course, I guess was the football coach at Ole Miss and then in Alabama, right, Logan? And he's now a U.S. Senator. We interviewed him as well. You know, the interesting theme by both Senator Johnson and Senator Tuberville is how corrupt the federal government is. How dysfunctional our federal government is with the waste, the common sense approaches that are not being done. And both of these guys are really, as you'll hear in the interview tonight, both of these guys independently of each other. I mean, we interviewed them separate. One didn't know what the other was saying. I don't even know if they knew we interviewed, Senator Johnson didn't know we interviewed Senator Tuberville, vice versa. And they both really had the same theme, which is there's so many problems with our country, and they come from Washington, D.C. So many of our issues that we need to solve are at the federal level to get Washington out of our lives. So we're going to bring you Congressman Glenn Grothman, Senator Ron Johnson, and Senator Tommy Tuberville, and then our tour of the White House press briefing room and North Lawn. Now, folks, we're worn out. I mean, we left Memphis on Friday. We went to Dayton, where we toured the Air Force Museum. Boy, it's really raining, folks. We toured the Air Force Museum. What's that, Logan?
Well, they're going to hear you.
Oh, I know. Logan's like, will they be able to hear me over the rain? We toured the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio. Got an amazing amount of footage, folks. We're going to be bringing you so many 15 to 30-minute documentaries about, well, I'll tell you what. We walked on President Kennedy's airplane. And we can show you a little clip of that tonight if you want, Logan, if we have time. But we went on President Kennedy's airplane, his Air Force One, that he took to Dallas. And then sadly that brought his body back to Washington after he was assassinated. We actually are on board. We stood where Lyndon Johnson was sworn in with Jackie Kennedy next to him. And we walked out the back door of Air Force One, which was the very back door that President Kennedy walked off of that day. A lot of presidents today, of course, historically walk off the front of the plane. His private office and bedroom was more toward the back end of the plane, so that was kind of his quarters. So he came off the back end of the plane, and when he walked off the back end of the plane, on his right-hand side, he walked by 4 rows of seats. We show those in our documentary, our video, I should say. And those 4 rows of seats were removed, and approximately 2.5 hours later, his body was in a casket and placed there where those 4 seats had been. They had to cut out part of the airplane wall, the Secret Service did. We'll show you the cut where they had to cut part of the wall of the plane to get his casket to turn the corner. They also, according to reports, had to take off the handles, I think 6 handles off the casket, again to make the casket more narrow to get that through the door. And yet, again, they still had to cut part of the bulkhead and take that out to get it around the corner to place it on Air Force One. We'll show you all that. I don't know if Logan's got all that tonight to show you or not, but we did a lot of filming. We'll bring that to you. We filmed a lot of the other Air Force Ones. Truman, FDR. FDR had to have an elevator to get up into it because he was in a wheelchair. We saw the Brock Scar. That's one of the planes that dropped one of the bombs on Japan. And we just filmed so many interesting things at the Air Force Museum there on Saturday. That's four hangars. 4 hangars. We walked all over that plane, those 4 hangars, filming those planes with multiple cameras. And we'll be producing 15-minute and 30-minute short documentaries on some of those very historic planes that we saw. We also then arrived in Washington early Sunday morning, early Sunday morning, and we went to the Air and Space Museum in Dulles, by Dulles Airport, not the Air and Space Museum downtown DC, which some of you have probably been to that one. Some of you have probably been to the one at Dulles. The one at Dulles is amazing, huge, by Dulles Airport. Now, I grew up in the DC area. I went to the Air and Space Museum in downtown DC within the first few weeks that it opened when I was a kid. But I'd never been to the one out by Dulles Airport. This one is just gorgeous, and it is loaded with airplanes. And we filmed the one plane, as I said, in Dayton, which was the Brock Scar that dropped one of the bombs in Japan. Then on Sunday, we saw the Enola Gay. And so that, I think, the one that dropped the first atomic weapon on Japan. And then 3 days later, the next one was dropped. We filmed all over that one. And we'll be bringing you a short little documentary on those 2 historic airplanes and what that was all about. And very obviously controversial, and the Manhattan Project that all went with it and everything. Then we filmed, listen to this, folks. We filmed all over, around, and to some degree underneath and then above the Space Shuttle Discovery. It's the Space Shuttle that did the most missions, 39 missions. And it went 150 million miles. I think it was launched, I think off the top of my head, in '94. Had its last mission, I think it was in March of 2011, if I remember all this off the top of my head. So it did more missions than any space shuttle, going 150 million miles. And that thing is so big. You cannot fully appreciate how big that space shuttle is until you're right there underneath it, standing in front of it. And we, of course, show you the heat tiles. Those things have got to be able to withstand around 2,700 degrees Fahrenheit. The nose of the shuttle needs to be able to withstand about 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit on re-entry. Beautiful aircraft. I think that thing glides down and glides in. We filmed all over that. We'll be bringing you a special short documentary on the Space Shuttle Discovery as well. So many aircraft that we filmed there and did some little short commentaries about some of the aircraft. And we'll be producing. It'll take us weeks, folks, to release all of the different short documentaries we're doing on some of these very historic aircraft. The Concorde airplane that could go from like New York or France to DC so fast. You know, one of the really cool planes, which one was that, Logan? The SR-71 Blackbird. That thing is huge, and that one has 2 pilots, and that plane went from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. Listen now, Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. in 1 hour and 4 minutes and 20 seconds. Can you believe that? It landed there at Dulles, and then they brought it right on into the museum. Fabulous. Any of you ever get the chance to go to either the U.S. Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio, and I know some of you maybe have, but if you haven't, you should go. If you've never been to the Air and Space Museum at Dulles, outside of Washington, D.C., you should do it. The staff at both places were so friendly, accommodating. We had a lot of fun. We did a lot of walking. a lot of walking on Saturday, a lot of walking on Sunday, and then today we got up and we went right to Capitol Hill, and then we went right to the White House, and then we had to go from the Senate building to the House side to the Senate side buildings, go outside, walk. We walked all over the place today, folks. I said to Logan, I think my job and his job is looking a lot easier and I'm a lot more appreciative for my job. If I had to be a reporter running around Washington, D.C. all day and doing interviews in the heat in a suit, and it wasn't even that warm. Wait till July or August. You'd be sweating right through your suit. I mean, we walked so much today. Well, actually, since Saturday, Sunday, Monday. But after one day in Washington, walking all over and standing and setting up and taking down and moving the lights and the tripods, poor Logan, carrying a lot. I was helping as much as I could, but and Melissa was even carrying tripods. Melissa was carrying tripods as well. And what else were you carrying, Melissa? And you have a broken toe. And Melissa is doing all this with a broken toe, you guys. She was going down our stairs and was holding our granddaughter Cayman and caught her toe. I thought you were holding Cayman. You weren't? You were just walking down the stairs? Oh, were you holding the dog?
No, the dog stopped in front.
Oh, the dog stopped in front of you really fast. In order not to fall. I thought you were carrying the Cayman. In order not to fall, but Cayman was there at our house at the time. In order not to fall, you did what? Grabbed the railing, and your toe went right into the railing. Two of your toes went in the railing and through the metal railing and broke your toes. Two of your toes. Good grief. And that was, what, 10 days ago? And so she's walking all over with two broken toes. So she's a trooper and hauling equipment. So she's a trooper, guys. She's a trooper. But anyway, what I was saying is, after all of this, the last few days, I love sitting in my studio. Now you guys know why they don't get me out of the studio anymore. They all wanted to get me out of the studio and go do some stuff. It may have backfired on them. Because as worn out as I am after 3 days, Melissa, I'm not sure. And we still have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to go. But anyway, we're having a fun time, but we are tired already. But we got some great interviews, some great footage. We still have Arlington National Cemetery, the changing of the guard. We have the Anti-Communist Museum. We are going to also go to where President Reagan was shot in March of '81. We're going to show you where President Reagan was shot, the door he came out of, because I interviewed the Secret Service agent that took a bullet for President Reagan that day. I interviewed him a few years ago. And of course, I've interviewed Michael Reagan many times. We've talked about it. And we're going to go and show you where President Reagan was shot and the door he came out of and how that changed some of the Secret Service protocols. But I'll be able to mix it in with interviews by the very Secret Service agent that took a bullet that day for him, Timothy McCarthy, and of course, Michael Reagan. So we're going to take and show you that, and then also make that into a really interesting little documentary as well. So we got a lot of footage we're grabbing, folks, of historical places, historical sites, and then we're bringing them to you throughout the next few weeks and months as we can get them posted as fast as we can. So anyway, there you go. We also did radio today from Capitol Hill in the on the House side, and our reporter from Israel joined us. I called him to see if he could come on the show, and he said, I'm boarding a plane in Tennessee, and I'm touching down in Washington, D.C. He was in Tennessee. I said, you're kidding, we're here now. He said, my plane has been delayed, and I will be sitting in D.C. till about 6 o'clock. I said, well, get in a cab and come over to the Capitol. So he did, and we had the chance to interview Aaron in person today, our reporter from Israel on Capitol Hill. He had never been to Washington, D.C., and he was just amazed by the buildings and just to see it all after watching it his whole life on television. So he was very intrigued to be there on Capitol Hill with us. And we talked about the Houthis, which is really Iran, striking and sending a ballistic missile into Tel Aviv this week, so over the weekend. So we talked about that with my reporter from Israel today on Capitol Hill. You can watch that later at worldviewtube.com, that interview. So anyway, we've had a very productive day. Hope we'll continue to have a productive week. Keep praying for our safety, good weather. We've dodged 2 storms. One storm came while we were in the House building doing interviews and stopped just as we needed to get out to go to the Senate side to the other building. And then it started storming right before we started the broadcast here. So we got out of that all perfect timing because a lot of you are praying, I think, for our good weather, health, and some divine appointments. So anyway, we've had a couple today already. All right, so thank you for that. All right, before we go to our first interview with Senator Ron Johnson, talking about Building 7 and so much more. One of the things I take every day is my Gatatana, or Gatatana, depending on how you say it. Right, Dolly? And Dolly gets a half a scoop on her food each and every day, and she's being a trooper on the trip. All of them are being troopers on the trip. So she gets to have a scoop on her food every day. I take a full scoop. Melissa gave it to me this morning, so I'd have the energy I needed to do what we're doing here. And so, again, I urge you to do it. One scoop is the equivalent of 90 billion plant cells, loaded with amino acids, so many important trace minerals. One little scoop, that's such a teeny little scoop, and this will last you quite some time because it's just a little bitty scoop. I do a full scoop with water every day, half a scoop for Dolly. Check it out at melissahousegpa.com, melissahousegpa.com. Get a subscription so you don't miss out. Remember the story of the man that came up with this and the terminal diagnosis he got? So he just started eating the paste that which was the phytoplankton that he was growing for the shellfish. They gave him a terminal diagnosis. I'm not making any claims. I'm just telling you he started eating it. He lived another 10 years, retired to Hawaii. I swish every day with Numi, loaded with glutathione to detox your cells. Get a subscription to that as well so you do not run out of that. Last week I was feeling sick. I didn't want to be sick on this trip, so I was swishing on the hour, every hour. Put it on my desk and was swishing, and the next day I made a big turn. So glutathione, 162,000 studies on that at PubMed. Get a subscription on that at swishforlife.com, swishforlife.com. We brought a whole box of our Bella Grace because we do not want to run out of that. We take that every day as well. It's the power of the three, to be honest with you. And this, of course, contains high in collagen with the peptides cut short, so your body actually digests about 95% of it, absorbs it into your system versus flushing it. Cat's claw, which is an anti-inflammatory, and astaxanthin, which is takes on those free radicals and crosses the brain-blood barrier. These are three powerful things that we do each and every day. Melissa and I do these each and every day. So check them out. If you want all three sites, just go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Now, if you appreciate what we're doing here, you already had yours. If you appreciate what we're doing here, we do need your support. Coming out here, bringing the motor coach and all that, and a driver is not inexpensive. And so we need your support, folks. You cannot have my Sprite. We need your support. So please consider going to worldviewfoundation.com. Worldview Foundation. I'll pass it off to you before she spills that, baby girl. Here you go, hun. Worldviewfoundation.com. Worldviewfoundation.com is Dolly's in my camera shot. Be sure to go there and support us, will you? Again, we want to do more of these things. We are already scoping out a few more historical places to go to, maybe later in the fall. But folks, you will not believe the amount of documentaries, short form documentaries, historical documentaries we're going to be bringing to you absolutely free of charge with all. I mean, Logan, aren't you shocked at how much footage we've got in the last 3 days?
Yeah.
That we can use for documentaries and bringing great historical programming.
Yeah.
Kind of basically becoming another history channel, a conservative history channel. We want to do more. We want to do more historical history type programs because I think History Channel is kind of going a little woke from what I'm seeing and hearing. So we want to do more history stuff too to mix in with all the other things we do. So I think that would be powerful. So again, if you appreciate what we're doing, help us cover the cost of this trip so that we can justify the budget for doing more of it and bringing you all of this free programming. Think of us as your conservative Christian worldview alternative to talk, NPR, National Public Radio, National Public Television, all right? So thank you for that. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors, and then, of course, worldviewfoundation.com. All right, let's go to my first interview that I want to share with you tonight, and that's Senator Ron Johnson. Watch this. Joining me now is Senator Ron Johnson from the great state of Wisconsin. I know we've got a lot of viewers in the state of Wisconsin. Senator, thanks for making time for us today.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Great to be here with you. You're a brave guy. We don't see a lot of senators like you. I've been covering the media for 35 years, and we don't see a lot of senators willing to take on the issues you do. What's in your background, your childhood, your upbringing? What was it? What is it that's made you have so much courage? I know people have convictions, but a lot of people don't have the courage of their convictions. What was it in your upbringing? Your parents, your grandparents, church, combination, Boy Scouts?
Well, first of all, I had two parents of deep faith that loved me. I think if every child could say that, the world would be a whole lot better place. So again, extremely wonderful parents, strong work ethic. I always tell people it wasn't like I wanted to work, my mother made me. My mom and dad made me. So yeah, it starts there. But I think as it relates to here in the Senate, I don't have some strong desire to be a U.S. Senator. I mean, this is not. I'd rather go home. Okay, I mean, this place is so utterly dysfunctional. Quite honestly, the only reason I ran, not the only, two reasons I ran for a third term is I couldn't turn my back on this country. That's the main reason. But also, nobody else was advocating for the vaccine injured. I found that very disappointing that I was but the only voice for people who were injured by the COVID injection. And it's really an injection. It's not a true vaccine. And so I couldn't abandon them either. So I couldn't turn my back on this country. I couldn't turn my back on the injection injured.
Well, that's why I'm saying you're brave. You take on not only that, but other issues I'll get to. But you do so much press. I'll just remind you, we work with Dr. James Thorpe. He's one of our broadcasters. Okay. He does a show. We work with Dr. Peter McCullough regularly. So we're aware that you've been holding hearings and interviewing and putting forth people, experts, and doing testimony that very few will do. And I know my audience appreciates it. Your name comes up a lot. When people talk about positive things in Washington, your name is one of the names that pops up.
So I gave those individuals a platform, and it's their careers have been destroyed. I mean, they're the people with real courage. They're the ones that were able to step outside their medical establishment, and they were vilified for it. They were fired. They were terminated. They were sued. That's courage.
Let's talk about your tax reform. You're working on a bill for that, are you not?
Well, I'm on Senate Finance. I gave up all my seniority on Senate Foreign Relations so I could be here at this moment. I wasn't on Senate Finance when we did the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, and I'm the guy that when the House produced the bill that only cut taxes for 5% of American businesses, the C Corps, I'm the one that said, well, what about the other 95% of businesses? What about the pass-through entities? So the first thing I had to do was educate my colleagues what a pass-through entity was. Had to educate them the extent that we were really putting 95% of American businesses at a complete disadvantage of the C Corps. They had to dig my heels in for the last 20% of them. It was pretty easy to give tax relief for 80% because they're so small, didn't even score basically. It was the last 20% that, quite honestly, would just convert over C Corp status, and we wouldn't have even raised the revenue we're raising now from them. So, I did that because I come from the private sector. I understood exactly what was going to happen, how we were going to be disadvantaging those pass-throughs versus the C Corps.
And that brings, of course, the issue of tariffs, which I guess so many people have so many opinions on that one, right? But if we go that route, how are you seeing this play out for your farmers in Wisconsin and around the country? We were just at the White House this morning. The Secretary of Agriculture came there. She did a little press briefing for those of us standing around outside the West Wing. She says she's going to England, Vietnam, some other places as well in the next few weeks. How do you think this is going to work out for the farmers, the tariffs?
Well, the reason you have so many opinions on tariffs, it's an incredibly complex issue. So even those individuals who are looking at what's happening right now and thinking they're going to be harmed by it, they also recognize what President Trump is trying to do, they support. So it's a very difficult issue. I'm concerned, and I express those concerns. But at the same time, I realize that China is not following the rules. I realize that over the decades we have allowed incredibly important, vital products to be offshored. We no longer manufacture them, and that represents a huge national security risk for us. So how do you fix something that has been created, the problems have been created over decades? President Trump's trying to do it in his first 100 days, in his first year in office. He's only got 4 years, so he's moving boldly. It's a big risk he's taking, quite honestly. I think the difference between me and many others that have concerns, I want to see him succeed. I mean, there are a lot of people that hate President Trump, want to see him fail. I want to see him succeed. I don't know his end game. I don't know his, I think I understand his negotiating strategy. He's really put the whole world off balance to try and bring people to the negotiating table to start negotiating in good faith for once, because they haven't always done that. So he's disrupting the apple cart here, and disruption produces a level of uncertainty, instability in the economy. It's a risk he's taking. Again, he's very smart. He understands this. He realizes that Joe Biden lost because of the high inflation. He realized that it's the economy stupid. He understands those things. He's taking this risk because he has this multi-decade firmly held belief that these enormous trade deficits have hollowed out our middle class, have driven manufacturing, vital manufacturing overseas. He's trying to fix that. He's trying to fix it rapidly. It's not easy to do. So I know it's not much of an answer. I can't tell you how this ends.
But are you saying he's kind of in a position where he's inherited so much over so many decades? Are you concerned about the dollar and the life of the dollar? Is he negotiating against a ticking clock when it comes to inflation and debt and the national interest rate every year and all of this? Is he trying to, I guess, roll the dice and take a big chance but maybe fix the problem in a large way? Is that possible?
I think that's what he's trying to do, and as a result, nobody can really predict the outcome. That's why what I focus on is spending. That's one thing I think that must be done. I think it's irrefutable that is the root cause to so many of our problems. Listen, I'm not a fan of the federal government. It's massive. We went from $4.4 trillion in spending to this year we'll spend over $7 trillion. That's basically a 60% increase as our population has grown less than 3%. Now, we had Biden inflation, but again, you can't justify this level of spending, so we need to bring it down. If you want to defeat the deep state, stop funding it. Certainly not at these levels. So to me, that's just something basic we have to do. But as you're seeing, we've got big spenders in our party as well. Nobody wants to be accused of cutting any spending. That's why the size of government and our deficit and debt just continues to ratchet one direction up. It's time to reset things. This is unprecedented from us because of COVID, going from 4.4 to $7 trillion. It's unprecedented in terms of that percent increase, that percent cut out of our GDP. So it's just crucial that we return to a reasonable pre-pandemic baseline. That's what I'm insisting on. That's what I'm fighting for.
Let me switch to Iran, Israel. We just had this attack by the Houthis on the airport in Tel Aviv. President Trump's put out a statement in the last 24 hours that he knows that Iran's behind this and that they are risking serious consequences. It seems as though he was ready maybe to do something a month ago, move some assets into the region. Word is some folks in one ear were saying negotiate, others are saying it's time to do something. He seems to have drawn a line here and given them some time to come to the table. Now this, and now the strong statement. I guess he's going to Israel next week. We're big supporters of the people of Israel, their right to the land. I don't agree with everything the Israeli government does any more than I agree with everything my federal government does, but I support the Jewish people, the Jewish state, and I think while I do that, I also have to be consistent. I don't want to see boots on the ground in various parts of the country. My son's draft age still. Does that resonate, you think, with some of your voters where we want to be friends to Israel, help Israel where we can, sell them weaponry, do what we can with that, but at the same time being cautious because of maybe the fallout that could come to our country with, we don't know who's here, the borders being open for so many years, terror cells here. How conflicted are you on this issue?
Well, the bottom line issue is, can we allow Iran to become a nuclear power? That's the question. If they do, that represents an existential threat to Israel. When you consider things like EMP, the damage, that could be an existential threat to America. You have to look at the Ayatollahs, you have to look at what they have been willing to withstand when all they would have to do to have all the sanctions lifted, to have Iran's economy open up and for the benefit of all the Iranian people would be just abandon the nuclear weapons program. They're not willing to do it. So there's really no way that you can say that anybody has been able to negotiate with Iran where they're negotiating good faith. So we're going to be approaching a decision point here. I think that's what President Trump is faced with. Unfortunately, we had the Obama administration who coddled Iran. Then you had President Trump come in and put tough sanctions on, hopefully drive them to good faith negotiations. And then he obviously lost the re-election. You had President Biden come back and coddle them. And so they've just never felt that Iran has never felt that their back's up against the wall where they've had to abandon those nuclear weapons, I think they're going to find with this administration their back is going to finally be up against the wall. Israel certainly weakened them. Pretty well took out their air defense system, so that Iran's in the most vulnerable position it's been in quite some time. So it's really up to the Ayatollahs to decide: should we abandon our nuclear weapons program, subject ourselves to SNAP inspections so that the world is assured that we don't have these weapons? Let's face it, they are the bad actors in the Middle East. They are the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism. Eventually they're going to have to be taken care of.
And there's a lot of Persians on the ground. Some of them we hear from with their VPNs where they can listen and watch programs like ours. And we get communications from time to time where they're saying, hey, thank you for remembering us on the ground here who want liberty, who want freedom, who don't want to live under this Sharia. So is there a place, you think, for the people to rise up and do away with that government?
Well, they rose up when Obama was in office, and he did nothing to support them, not even verbal support. And that was probably the best chance. But I mean, that's part of the conflict we have here in America is we have no beef with the Iranian people, none whatsoever.
Right.
We don't have beef with Russians or Chinese or, it's unfortunate. We have leaders in the world that are basically evil. And they don't care, apparently, what happens to their population. So that's the difficult thing for American decision makers is how do we make sure that Iran never becomes a nuclear power without harming the Iranian people? It's probably not possible. I mean, war is hell. I want to avoid it like a plague. I know President Trump does. I mean, of any president in my lifetime, I think President Trump is the least likely to bring America into a war. And if he goes to war, you realize it's probably the last resort.
Let me switch in the final moments here to Building 7. You brought that up. Again, I kind of go back to where I started. You're willing to bring up some topics and talk about some things that a lot of people aren't. What was it about Building 7 and watching that come down that has now opened the possibility of you holding hearings?
Well, first of all, what has happened in, I guess, my evolution in the United States Senator, I didn't come here to be an investigator. But I became chairman of Homeland Security Governmental Affairs, that is the Senate Oversight Committee. And so I've just experienced firsthand the number of times the federal government lies to us, how deep the deep state really is, how immune they are from actually being managed by, for example, Republican presidents. So again, I've seen the FBI really carry out an operation against me and Senator Grassley. So again, I've seen up close and personal, the federal government is not to be trusted. It has lied repeatedly through the decades to the American public. We were warned about this by Eisenhower, basically. So fast forward to, I was the ranking member of the Permit Subcommittee Investigation. That is the Senate investigatory body. As ranking member under Chairman Blumenthal, he decided he wanted to investigate the PGA Tour's attempt to do a deal with Live Golf and the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. He represents people that are impacted by 9/11, so he wanted to investigate what is Saudi Arabia doing with a very valuable U.S. company, PGA Golf. Well, the result of that investigation, which, by the way, I didn't really agree with. I thought that's a private transaction. Let those two parties try and come to some agreement to figure out how the world's top players can compete with each other. Okay, we didn't need to get the Senate involved in that, but because he got involved in that, we had 9/11 families come to us with the heavily redacted information they had obtained from the FBI. They basically told them nothing and requested that we ask the FBI, here almost 25 years after 9/11, come clean about what we know about Saudi's involvement in 9/11. So that began my involvement in that whole issue. It wasn't something I went in because I wanted to get into. I have a responsibility. And because I know the federal government lies to us, I thought it was about time the federal government become transparent. So we requested that information from the FBI, and under the Biden administration, we got squat. But because we request that information, I start getting all kinds of investigation, all kinds of information. So I've watched the documentary 7, Bravo 7. I've got a lot of information that just has piqued my curiosity. And again, when the government doesn't give you information that, again, 25 years after, why wouldn't we tell the American public what we know? That also raises my suspicion. So based on the information I've gotten, it's kind of hard to watch Building 7 come down It sure looks like a controlled demolition.
Yes, it does.
You hear all these reports of people hearing explosions. Again, there are just questions that haven't been answered adequately. And now, in addition to the 9/11 families, you also have the firefighters, who again, there was never a steel structure like that ever collapsed because of fire. Now, the Twin Towers, they got hit by airplanes. There are other explanations for that, but Building 7, even the NIST report, which they have not, which also makes me suspicious, they have not released their calculations. They say it's a national security issue. Okay, sure. But even the NIST study said that the structural damage caused by the downing of the towers, what structural damage, it was not significant. So you're left now with a fire bringing down Building 7. And just a host of other just unanswered questions. So again, when I see unanswered questions and I know the government's lied to us, it piques my curiosity.
We interviewed Richard Gage, the architect who's worked on this for 18 years, for an hour and 10 minutes or so, and his videos and slide presentations and just the math, the known laws of the universe that he brought out. My jaw was dropped to the ground. I'm like, wow,
You also had that professor up in Alaska that did a project with the PhD students for about 4 years that just completely refutes what NIST put out there. So again, I'm not a structural engineer. I couldn't do the math. But there are so many unanswered questions, and you have the 9/11 families, you have the firefighters that want answers. If I can get them those answers, I think that's kind of my responsibility.
And when do you think your hearing will be?
I haven't scheduled a hearing. Right now, we're just gathering information. I have an open mind. I don't have a closed mind, and it doesn't bother me when people call me conspiracy theorist. That's exactly what the CIA has always done. That's what the government has done. Just marginalized, or this person's been completely discredited. And that's how they battle back. When they don't have the facts on their side, they just scream conspiracy theorist, or we've completely discredited that individual. Like, oh, okay, so we don't have to listen to him. I don't mind being called a conspiracy theorist, because basically all these conspiracies I've dug up have all turned out
to be true. That's right. 2 more questions. The one of our guys that sat in as a guest host for us on our network has been Ed Martin, and now he's the acting U.S. District Attorney. How likely are we to get Mr. Martin confirmed?
I hope it's highly likely, and I've done everything I can. I'm going to continue to encourage members of the Judiciary Committee, Chairman Grassley, to make sure that he gets confirmed. Otherwise, the judge can appoint that person. He won't appoint somebody of the kind of quality and caliber and the person that has the inquisitive mind that Ed Martin will have.
Well said. Okay, finally, we're coming up on our 250th anniversary as a nation. I guess there's big plans, big parades. How important is this 250 years as far as us making sure our school kids know about our history, our heritage, our founding? I remember the former KGB officer who was an expert in propaganda, Yuri Bezmenov, did a long interview on the KGB infiltrating America back in 83, 84. It's something I've watched for years and has now become more part of pop culture, actually, on social media. But he was asked at the end of that interview, so what do we do about all this? And he said, teach patriotism. If you want to counter the KGB, their propaganda, teach patriotism. And I know you've taken on the wokeness and all this, which is really the antithesis of patriotism, right? Ronald Reagan, in his farewell address, said, my call to the American people is to teach an informed patriotism. So with all that as the backdrop, what kind of unique opportunities should we be taking as a nation, and President Trump with his parades and all that we're hearing is being laid out for this 250-year anniversary? Is this a great opportunity for us to educate maybe even adults who never were taught this in school about our founding and the values and the character and the integrity that underpins a republic, not a democracy?
Well, that opportunity always exists, and I think that Russian expert, I think, pretty well laid it out in terms of what has been happening. The radical left has infiltrated every institution globally, quite honestly, and they've done it very effectively, put us on a path of destruction. So it is, the only way you can combat that is with the truth. And the truth is our founding fathers were geniuses. They realized that if we don't want to live in chaos and anarchy, we need some government, but that government, by and large, is something to fear. Government is power. And as Lord Acton said, power corrupts. And so you look at the government, and it's pretty well corrupted across the board, captured by the very industries that it's been, established to regulate. When they capture it, they use government to disadvantage their competitors, and that's to the to the detriment of the American public as well. So we need to get the truth out there. We need to expose it. We need to, from my standpoint, get DEI, wokeism, radical leftism out of our education systems, out of these institutions, but they're firmly entrenched. They don't give up power. That's what they seek, is they seek power. It's up to patriots, it's up to people who value liberty and freedom to fight back as relentlessly as the left is in denying us freedom in relentless and growing government. We have to be every bit as relentless in defending our freedom and liberty.
Great interview. Thank you, Senator, for your time. You're very generous. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me on.
We'll be right back after this break. All right, that was a great interview. Now, I want to give you a little tour of the press briefing room at the White House and the North Lawn. So we pre-taped this, obviously, there today. We share that with you, and then we'll go do an interview with U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville. Watch this. Let me take you guys on a quick tour of the White House press briefing room. It's located in the West Wing. The White House is right there, very close to the residence. Come through these doors. And I think you're going to be shocked at how small the room is in person, but then again, you're not in person, so maybe you can't tell, but it is not a very big room. There are 49 chairs in the White House press briefing room. The reporters come in here, they sit, they write articles, they wait for press briefings, maybe one or two a week. We were just out on the West Lawn, or the North Lawn, and there was an impromptu briefing by the Secretary of Agriculture. So they sit in here, writing articles, writing stories, waiting for something to happen. And a lot of waiting. We've been watching them now for the last few hours, and a lot of them do a lot of sitting and waiting, don't they, Logan? It's named after Press Secretary Brady, who was injured during the assassination attempt against President Reagan, and I think that was March of '81. On the walls over here, let's go over here, Logan. You could see the formal opening after it was remodeled in 1981, ribbon being cut. That's Brady. It was later named after him. Here is another ribbon cutting for it being remodeled in 2007 during the Bush administration, George W., and then remodeled in 2023. I think, again, what most people would be shocked to find out, don't you, Logan, is how small it is, how tight it is. Their gear, show them, Logan. People keep their gear, look around here, their gear stacked in here, all waiting. It's very narrow. Again, there's only 49 seats in here. Under Carolyn Lavette, they, of course, added the influencer chair up front. Someone gets to ask a question. We'll walk up front here. The room tends to fill up with more people as it rains outside. You can show that door right there, Logan. That is the door that I grew up watching Ronald Reagan walk through to give press briefings. On the other side of that door, we were just over there a while ago, is where we were visiting with some of the what are called the press wranglers. Those are the people that give us our press passes, tell us what's going on, or people you talk to request assistance for interviews or special things. So on the other side of the doors where we just came from are where your press wranglers sit. And they are some of the busiest people. They will make a visit out to the front gate of the White House about every hour, bringing in new press. Unless, of course, they have a hard pass and they just scan in and come on in. And many of these in the press room here do have a hard pass,
They're gonna freak people out.
which allows them to access and come in anytime during the day. And again, many of them sitting in here preparing stories and just visiting with each other, kind of a social club.
It's his first day. Right.
Maybe pan that crowd. Pan that right there. A little shot. All right, there you go. All right. So we're going to walk out.
And they were like,
head to the Capitol. We got some interviews this afternoon with Congressman Glenn Grothman, Senator Ron Johnson. We'll come back here tomorrow. The West Wing is beautiful, the entrance. They were just mowing the lawn this morning when we arrived. Look how beautiful the lawn is, Logan. You see the fountain off? See the fountain just in the distance there? And I think they changed the color guard. This at the door of the West Wing about every hour. We saw them change at the top of the hour. And this is where you have a lot of press standing around, again, waiting for stories, waiting for stuff to happen. There's a lot of people that, if you watch CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, different networks, you recognize a lot of these reporters, and a lot of them literally are standing around, just waiting for news to happen and to come up with a story. The tents here are, again, your CNN, your Fox News, your MSNBC type stations. Now, this used to be called Pebble Beach. When I was here during the George W. Bush administration, I don't think those tents were there, Logan. I think it was, were they there, Melissa? I don't think those tents were there when we were here under George W. I think it was just pea gravel, and they nicknamed it Pebble Beach because of all the pea gravel. And somewhere along the way, they put these tents in as we go by. You'll see that a lot of them are either doing a recorded piece or they're standing by to do a live piece. They have their computers in there. They have monitors to study, to write their stories, their scripts. You can see how they have their stands, their black stands, so they can put their talking points and script up there. And some of them use teleprompters, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them are memorizing their text, their script they've written. They have it up there on big notes, ready to go. And of course, right here, these are prime spots. You see NBC is right here, C-SPAN is here, CNN right there. These are prime spots, Logan, and we'll show you why it's a prime spot, because when they're broadcasting and reporting, this is the premium shot right here. This is where you want to be. This is the iconic picture that you recognize, so many of you do, of people reporting from the White House. And as you can see, this is why it's so iconic. So these are the prime real estate positions right in here if you want that over your shoulder. Otherwise, you really just have as your backdrop a white wall, the briefing room or a white wall, which some of them do. They stand down there. Of course, the West Wing, that's a pretty backdrop, but this is the iconic one. This is one everybody around the world recognizes, and that's what all these news guys want in their formal shot. They want this picture right in here. So they are here, and come rain or shine, they can be under those tents and broadcast. So we'll exit now. And again, they were just mowing the lawn this morning when we arrived, so they just finished that up shortly after we walked in. Give a pan that lawn. It's a gorgeous lawn. Recently, they took down one of the trees here at the White House that was, I think, planted, they say it was, at least, by Andrew Jackson. They claim that they are planting some saplings from it and keeping the wood, and are going to, I guess they're going to make some stuff from the wood. It's a historic tree. It's been there for, well, obviously, reportedly since Andrew Jackson planted it. That's the story, at least. But it had to be taken down about 2-3 weeks ago. President Trump has been walking around out here at least one time a week or so ago. He was trying to scope out where to put a couple flags. Reports are he's going to put 2 very large flags here. Huge. How tall, Logan?
100 feet.
100 feet tall, 2 of them. 100 feet tall on the White House lawn, north side. The Rose Garden is right back on the other side of the West Wing, and that's the lawn that most Americans also are familiar with, watching Marine One take off and land there on the south lawn. This is the north lawn. So I guess there's going to be 2 very large flags, 100 feet tall, that President Trump is looking to put in here. So we'll head out now. We're going to go to Capitol Hill where we have some interviews scheduled, and then we'll be back here tomorrow And again, there are some press briefings supposed to be taking place, but a lot of it is sit around and wait. I'm very thankful I have my job, aren't you, Logan? Yeah. A lot of people sitting around and waiting for news to happen, writing stories, trying to find stories. It's been such a slow news morning that when the Secretary of Agriculture came up and made a few statements about tariffs and farmers and things related to that, particularly tariffs, she got quite a bit of attention because, again, people are looking for a story, and they were engaging her with questions. So it's a great opportunity for members of President Trump's cabinet to just walk up and literally do impromptu press briefings, because as soon as they see or even get wind, we were down there and someone said, I think the Secretary of Agriculture is headed this direction. And word kind of spread. I think some people went into the press briefing room where they're all sitting and maybe told some of their friends. A lot of photographers came out and some people with cameras. And within a few minutes, she had a pretty good sized little press briefing crowd, didn't she, Logan? And she was able to do an impromptu press conference with the press, get out the message for the Department of Agriculture, for the president, and particularly related to tariffs. She announced that she's going to be taking some trips to England, Vietnam, India. Did you hear any more? Several places, all related to tariffs and agriculture and American farmers. She's talked a lot about what she's trying to do for the American farmer at the request of President Trump. So that was just an impromptu press briefing, and those happen here. And again, a lot of these folks, they stand around, they sit around, waiting for news to develop. Very interesting place to work, but some days are slow. Other days, well, you probably can't write enough stories to cover all that's going on. So it depends on the day, depends on the news cycle. It's been a real honor to be here. And of course, we thank Caroline Leavitt, for the press secretary, for opening up the press for alternative conservative media outlets to come in, to interview people, and to show you guys around and talk about the historical building. So thanks to her, the youngest press secretary ever, Caroline Leavitt, and her wranglers, as they call them, the press wranglers. Just very kind people, very professional people that have been over backwards to help us out, getting us our passes, getting us in. And we want to thank them for allowing us to be here. We look forward to coming back tomorrow and a couple more times this week. Hope you enjoyed this little tour. All right, isn't that interesting? All right, we'll bring you some more of that hopefully later this week. All right, folks, again, look at all we're doing. We need your support. WorldviewFoundation.com. Please let us see, because we're checking from the road. Let us see that some of you are coming in with support and saying, yep, we appreciate you guys going and doing this, and we want to see you do more of this and produce this kind of historical educational programming, not just staying in the studio all the time. So if you appreciate it, help us cover the cost of coming out here and doing all this. Please go now, WorldviewFoundation.com. Some of you could go there right now tonight and give a contribution of $250. Some of you $500. Be as generous as you can. If you do, we'll send you a tax receipt on February 1st of 2026, February 1st of 2026. So please go there now and support what we're doing, won't you? WorldviewFoundation.com. All right, let's go to our interview with U.S. Senator from Alabama, Tommy Tuberville. Watch this. Senator, thank you for making time. You were busy next door. We went over to introduce ourselves. You graciously agreed to come over. Yeah. Thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for coming up and spreading the word. We got a great country, but we finally got a president back in the White House that's trying to do something to try to build our country and give the country back to the American people. I spent my first 4 years up here just shaking my head going, what in the world is going on? We're trying to take God out of our country, churches. We're letting people come from other countries that have hate for Christians, and it's wrong. And if President Trump is the last person that probably can get this right, and so we've got to support him. And I'm looking forward to a lot of changes in the next 4 years.
Well, let's pray for that. We've had kind of a whiplash. We've gone from moms are potential domestic terrorists at school board meetings. If you say the Latin Mass, you're a potential terrorist. And now we've got where you've got Attorney General Pam Bondi and others holding panels trying to deal with religious persecution. I mean, mean, a new wind seems to be blowing where people are saying we want freedom all across the board.
Well, as I said, we've got to get God back in our country. We've got to get back in our schools. We've got to teach our kids the difference between right and wrong. I mean, this nonsense of saying, okay, if you don't steal over $1,000 worth in a Walmart or one of these stores, then it's only a misdemeanor and we'll let you go in the front door out the back. I mean, our kids need to learn right and wrong like you and I did. Suffer the consequences. I know if I got in trouble at school when I got home, I got in trouble when I got at home. And I think a lot of it, and of course being in coaching for 35 years, a lot of it has to do with the downgrade of parents. For some reason we've not everybody, but some have lost interest in raising their kids. And they want the school to raise their kids. They want coaches to raise their kids. And I didn't mind that coaching, but they need some guidance 24 hours a day when they go home. We've got a lot of great parents in this country, but we need to build on that. And where does it come from? It comes from unity of going to church and understand why we're on this earth.
Let's talk about families, taxation. President Trump's Commerce Secretary said, one of his goals is to see if he can get rid of that income tax for people who make $200,000 and down. If we could liberate the American taxpayer, the family, the mom and dad, don't you think that would help go a long way with saying to moms, now you can stay home, or I guess dad wants to do it, but traditionally you and I was the moms doing it, so that we're not forcing both parents into the workforce and kids letting themselves in at home with when the school bus stops at night.
I guess it was our generation coming up. My mom did not work until I was about 6th, 7th grade, right. And then she went to work trying to make ends meet at the end of the day. But it's just sad where we've gotten to this point. I believe in work. I believe in people working, but I also believe in families being raised with two parents and doing things right. And how about we do away with the federal income tax?
I love it.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
It's exactly what the guy at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the old blonde-headed boy they call Donald Trump, he's trying to do away with that with tariffs. We charge the people across the world, tax them for what they're buying from us, and put that back in our coffers. That's the only way we're going to be able to pay down our debt. We can't count on the people that are being taxed in this country to pay down $37 trillion, which we've wasted. This place up here has absolutely stolen and wasted trillions of dollars for the past 10 years, and we're $37 trillion in debt, and the American taxpayer owes the bill, but we can't afford it. So tariffs, I've got a lot of Republicans saying, I don't believe in these tariffs. Hey, how about we tax people all around the world that have come to our party but never brought anything? Now it's time for them to bring something to the party to help the United States of America and the taxpayers.
How will it help the American farmer, say in Alabama?
Well, all over the world. All over the country. I'm on the Ag Committee. Our farmers are getting killed. It's going to be over. We're losing farmers every day. Joe Biden ran 150,000 farms out of business, closed them down. The input costs, the cost of fertilizer, obviously oil and gas, equipment. A cotton picker's gone in 10 years from $700,000 to $1.5 million. They can't afford that. And so we're working with President Trump to try to get a new farm bill, try to get a little bit more pricing for commodities. But the problem is we have allowed just an influx of fish, corn, cotton, all the things that we grow here. They raise it at a different level in terms of their environment and the EPA, and they just flood our country, and our farmers are looking around going, hey, what about American made? Well, that's what Donald Trump's trying to do. Get back to American made, save our farmers, because they're on the ropes right now.
Well, my father retired from the USDA. He worked in a little small division started by Abraham Lincoln.
Oh my God.
To the statisticians area, NAS, to project the supply and demand of the crops, to call the farmers and survey them, how many acres, what you farming, and so Abraham Lincoln set up that little division, but boy, that's a big agency now, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll tell you, going back to one thing I want to talk about is if we don't understand that we've got to grow our own food and do things here in this country, we're going to end up like in COVID when we found out We don't make medication. It's all made in China. We have got to forget China. I wish President Trump today would put a 400% tariff on them and say, listen, we're not messing around. We're playing here. And I know it's going to hurt a lot of people in this country, but we have to get back to understanding that we have to take care of ourselves. Nobody else is going to take care of ourselves. Now, we've helped other people for 250 years, but now it's time for us to take care of the American people and build our country stronger.
A couple more questions. We have a story we broke on our network. We're on 74 Christian stations, World YouTube TV. We saw some guys in Arkansas that were posting about all the illegals that are driving semi-trucks in America that can't read English, that can't speak it, and they're running over people and literally killing families.
You read the signs.
They can't read the signs.
Yeah, and so I'm totally for that. And I've been talking with our truckers in Alabama, truckers from all over the country. If you're going to drive one of these rigs that are, 80,000 pounds or whatever it is, it's dangerous. It's like driving a rocket down the road. And what's happening is these people can't read signs. They go down one-way roads. They back into people. Insurances are going sky high. What is wrong with speaking English if you drive a truck? There's not one thing wrong. President Trump said it's going to happen, and so it is going to happen, and our truck drivers are elated, but everybody said, well, we don't have enough drivers. We need to get people off the couch, quit taking SNAP cards and welfare, and go back to work, because if we don't do it, there's not going to be welfare or SNAP cards. The country's going to be broke, which it is now, and not going to be able to take care of anybody. So, no, I'm 100% for you on that. Put people in the trucks that speak English. One
of our guest broadcasters for the last few years has been a guy named Ed Martin. Do you think we're going to see Ed get confirmed? I hope we are. What are your thoughts on that?
He better. And if he's not confirmed, it's because of rhinos in the Republican Party, people that have a beef against the guy for some reason. You know, what's wrong with the guy that believes in the rule of law? What's wrong with the guy that comes out and says, well, I'm going to support the other senator that's running against this senator because they don't believe in as much about, Republican ideas than other people do. And so a few of these senators are basically saying, listen, he didn't support me in my campaign. He was for the other guy. Well, guess what? It's time to get off your high horse and let's put the best guy in there, because if we don't, that goofball they got as a judge right now is going to be able to put whoever he wants in there, and it's not going to be good for the American people.
Final question. How did, I saw the video, so President Trump got a pretty good reception last week in Alabama at the commencement address, did he not?
Yeah, he did. I flew up with him down with him on Air Force One, and it was good to get him in Alabama. He has got a great reception. He and I talked about the NIL, and we talked about the truckers and not speaking English. We talked about several things. He loves to get out, loves to be around people, but we just got to keep our fingers crossed. This place up here is our problem. Our problem is not White House right now. The Senate and the House are a problem right now. Let's give the president what he wants, help the American people, and get back to the way of life that we all grew up in, and give our kids a chance, because if we don't, your kids and my kids are not going to have the same chance.
Absolutely. Thank you, Senator. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this break. All right. Great interview. Now, before we go to Congressman Glenn Grothman, one of our favorites here on our broadcast from the 6th District of Wisconsin, go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors, folks. worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Check out the water purifier. We're missing our water purifier right now on the road, folks. We're missing our water purifier. We love that purifier. It's the water we drink. It's the water we give Dolly. It also is infused with magnesium and also with oxygen, which is very good for you as well. So check out worldviewwater.net. You also find it at worldviewtube.com/sponsors or worldviewwater.net, worldviewwater.net. If you are looking to put gold into your IRA, or maybe you just want to acquire gold for your portfolio or put it in, as I said, into your IRA, get a free no obligation packet from my buddy Wes Peters by simply, you can do two things. You can either go to worldviewgold.com, fill out the form, worldviewgold.com, or you can text him at 602-558-8585, 602-558-8585, and you're not getting my Tic Tacs. You smell that? There's only one Tic Tac left in there, and you're not getting the last Tic Tac I got. All right? I'm sorry, not happening. Worldviewgold.com, worldviewgold.com. I'm glad we're not where she can get up close to me like this on normal broadcast day. She'd be all over the news desk. Worldviewgold.com, or text Wes and say, hey, Wes, I want that free, no obligation packet of information. Just text him 602-558-8585. All right, let's go to our interview with Congressman Glenn Grothman. Joining me now here on Capitol Hill is Congressman Glenn Grothman. I think he's our favorite member of Congress because, we chit-chat aside from interviews. We've got the chit-chat in person a couple of times now, on the phone. And but he also makes himself readily available to our broadcast network, not only Worldview 2, but VCY America, that, of course, covers Wisconsin. He is the U.S. representative for the 6th District of Wisconsin. Congressman, thank you for letting us be here today.
Well, welcome to the Capitol. Obviously, some good things going on, some shenanigans going on, but it's great to do something with you live and in person.
Well, great to have you here. Let's talk about some of the things going on right now related to the Middle East. We've had Iran, through the Houthis, hit the airport in Tel Aviv over the weekend. President Trump has put out a strong statement saying, hey, Houthis, we know Iran's pulling the strings. Iran, we know you're pulling the strings of the Houthis. Any more attacks on them, and there are going to be dire consequences. Now, reportedly, President Trump has had some people on his team telling him, do it diplomatically. Don't strike Iran. It looked like they were gearing up, moving ships into the area, I think some B-2s into the area, and then diplomatically they started trying to talk. They have some deadlines set. I guess he's going to Israel next week, President Trump is. Where do you see this thing going, and how concerned are you if we join Iran for a strike? How concerned are you of the blowback on the U.S. with either terror cells that are here, cyber attacks? What consequences could we face as a nation?
Well, I'll tell you, to this point, we have never gone this far to prevent a country from becoming a nuclear power. And of course, when we were children, there were many less countries than now. But slowly, North Korea and Pakistan, to know two, in one case, a very dangerous country, in the other case, kind of, I guess I'll describe it as an unstable country, now have nuclear weapons. Iran is filled with very intelligent people. The Persians are a very intelligent lot. And I'm sure left to their own devices, they will find a way to make nuclear weapons. After all, you know, these things were invented 80 years ago, almost. So I can't say it's wrong for President Trump to finally draw a line in the sand and say we're not going to let another country get nuclear weapons. But like I said, so far, you know, all of a sudden one day you woke up, Pakistan was a nuclear power. You woke up, North Korea was a nuclear power. And one of these times a really bad country is going to get it, who's not afraid to use it, and that'll be real trouble.
So you do have some reservation about if we join Israel in a strike, that the American people need to understand there could be blowback on our soil for that.
No question there could be. I mean, when you have people dying, and of course people are dying in Yemen, and we have struck out in the past to kill leaders in the Middle East who we didn't like. That certainly happened during President Trump's first term. I'm not sure he doesn't regret it, by the way. But that was done, and there'll be a point at which people say, you know, this country on the other side of the world is bombing us. Now, I'm not saying it's not something we should do. I'm just saying it's a very, very difficult call, and it is true. We do not want yet another country around the world becoming a member of the nuclear club.
So if we do this, the American people need to probably have an Oval Office address telling them what we're doing, while we're doing it, and being aware of the consequences. I mean, we had a caller call into the network today with VCY America saying we've got the 250th anniversary coming up of America. We're going to have a lot of Americans gathering. I guess we got the Olympics coming up here in the U.S. at some point. I mean, these are a lot of soft targets. So again, I guess if we're going to do this, the American people need to know the price and then become ever more vigilant, right?
Well, that's right. I mean, we haven't had a huge terror attack since 9/11, but obviously countries, you know, are going to frown on people dying because the United States has taken out given targets. On the other hand, you don't want to wake up one day and find out there's been a nuclear bomb in Tel Aviv or a nuclear bomb in New York City. And like I said, I'm not thrilled that North Korea has a nuclear weapon. I'm not thrilled that Pakistan does. it'd be nice to stop it here.
We were over at the White House this morning, and the Secretary of Agriculture came and held a little press conference in front of the West Wing entrance there, talking about going to England, to Vietnam. What other country was she talking about going to, Logan? India, several countries. She was really focusing with the press that was gathered around, and we were one of them, really focusing on those tariffs. What are your thoughts here on these tariffs and regard to the Wisconsin farmers?
Well, they're not good for agriculture. Now, there are one of two ways we could go. And as I understand it, within the Trump administration, there are people pushing both ways. One is limited tariffs until we get rid of the tariffs and no longer have the United States taken advantage of. There is another school of thought is that we'll always have tariffs, and tariffs are good for our budget and that we're getting in new money and we work our way towards a balanced budget. I think the second path would be catastrophic. Okay. I mean, if we go down that path, it means inflation, no doubt about it. There are benefits to free trade and takes away things there. And probably the worst thing, as far as I'm concerned, right now the United States is so much wealthier than Europe, your average person, because we tax people on a federal level on income, but not sales. If you begin to tax everybody tariff-wise, that's kind of a sales tax. And then you're going down the path of Americans paying on a federal level both income tax and sales tax, which is working our way towards being poorer like Europe. Yeah. I am told there are some people in the Trump administration want to go down that path. I do not want to go down that path, and I hope President Trump does not want to go down that path. I really hope he doesn't.
Let's switch to the issue of the family values, parental authority. The Supreme Court heard oral arguments last week related to a case about pushing LGBTQ agenda and all this cultural Marxism on children. And do parents have a right to deny this kind of education, to say, no, you're not doing this with my child? It sounds from the oral arguments that the Supreme Court might rule on behalf of the parents. I pray they do. Well, have you been tracking this case? What are your thoughts? Because I know it's right up your alley.
Well, they should view on the side of the parents, but that's not enough. Okay, it is horrible that even parents who don't care should have their children stuck with this stuff. Because even if you keep your child out, right, if it's out there for the other 20 kids in the class, right, it affects your kids and affects society. This should be a non-starter out of the chute. The idea that we should have LBG studies for third or fourth graders, or even for 10th or 11th graders, is preposterous. To a certain extent, I blame the slumbering clergy of this country for not creating the outrage that we should have. And what we've had a lot of easygoing clergy and easygoing parents who figure, well, it's a free country. What do I care if my second grader gets books on how wonderful it is to be gay? But it's just part of the general decline of America. And a lot of that decline has to land at the feet of the parents who haven't objected, not to their kid going there, but objected on the school board level. And a lot of it has to go to the clergymen who haven't pointed out how outlandish this is.
Speaking of education, Department of Education, is President Trump, where do you think he's at with the progress of moving this federal involvement in education back to the states?
Well, I hope he does. We'll see what happens when we wind up passing what we call our annual appropriation bills. And in our big, beautiful bill, the degree to which we reduce federal funding, because inevitably federal funding means federal control. And I'll come back to your last question one more time. How in the world do we get in a position in which the conservative position is that we don't want more children, we don't want children forced to get the LGB curriculum, unless their parents
approve, right?
It shouldn't be there anyway. Is that the default position now in America? That unless the parents get involved, you got to pay attention, or your third grader's going to get gay education? That's where we are. That's how pathetic it is. America had better wake up, because the politicians are bad. But the parents who let this stuff go on are worse.
Oh, I 100% agree. 100% agree. The big, beautiful bill. Are we going to get extended tax cuts, tax breaks? What do you think is going to happen there?
Well, I'm sure when we pass it, we'll extend the same tax cuts as last time. And I think we'll add the tax cuts that President Trump has laid out. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, which are substantial. It's going to take a while because there's disagreement within Republicans as to should we reduce spending if we're going to have these tax cuts. And I think to a large degree we should, and I think there are still some Republicans around here who actually want to add spending, so they got to get with the program.
What do you make of the judge in Wisconsin, your home state, arrested for over ICE issues?
Well, it's a problem we have in that the chattering classes, the ruling classes, including judges, don't understand why we have immigration laws. And while this judge was kind of out there and made her beliefs obvious, I would say maybe a quarter of the judges in the country would do what she did if they had the guts, maybe a third. Probably a third of the judges would. And that's because people don't understand why we have immigration laws, and a majority of the elites in this country think we don't need a country and everybody should be able to come here. Your listeners should remember, every year 850,000 new Americans are sworn in as citizens. I think in the neighborhood of 450 to 500,000 people come here every year on work visas. I think about 400,000 people come here on student visas. So it's not impossible to come here on your own. And the Republicans have to do a better job of educating the public. We're letting enough people in here legally. We don't have to let in all these people here illegally. And that's why I give your numbers. So now your listeners are, quite frankly, more informed than your average congressman on the number of people we're letting here legally.
Yeah, well, we can thank folks like you also for coming on regularly, helping us stay informed. Which, by the way, what did you make of that big rally we had about a month ago at the Waukesha Expo Center that you spoke at? There was a lot of people there that seemed to really appreciate you.
Well, I was glad to see you in Wisconsin, and as you make other stops around the country, I encourage your listeners, there's nothing better than seeing Brannon Howse live and in person. Better than on TV.
Well, you're very kind. All right, so what other big issues before we let you go? What other big issues are you working on? Any legislation that you're working on? Oh, and by the way, I know I don't think the House has to confirm him, but is the Senate, you think they're going to confirm Ed Martin as U.S. District Attorney? He's one of our former guest hosts here on our network, by the way.
I'd be surprised if they didn't. President Trump usually has been getting what he wants. We have a couple votes to lose in the Senate, and it'd be a real kick in the teeth to President Trump if he's not confirmed, so I think he will be.
And are you working on any particular legislation you want to inform us on?
Right now, we're just working on the big, beautiful bill and trying to hold down the amount of spending. I think behind the scenes, there are fights going on between people who understand. Remember, we're borrowing 26% of our budget. We're borrowing 26% of our budget, and overall, 1/7 of our budget is interest. So we cannot cut the interest expense any more than you can cut your mortgage at home. We're stuck with that. So I'm trying to keep the Republicans who think this would be a neat time to come up with new spending programs. We're trying to keep them at bay.
Congressman, as always, we appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Congressman Grothman checking in. We'll be right back. All right, folks, a great program. We told you we'd work hard to bring you Brannon Howse live, even if part of it's not live, pre-tape, and then part here. But we told you we'd work hard to get that to you this week while we're on the road, and we're going to keep trying to bring you some great things from our trip. And of course, a lot of it we've filmed that we'll be making into documentaries in the days and weeks ahead. So you're in for a real treat for the quality of broadcast. We'll do a lot of historical programming, like on those important airplanes and historical airplanes, and then we'll drop in some interviews, and it'll be voiceover done as well with all the B-roll footage, and turn into some really interesting high quality documentaries, short documentaries on these historical planes and places we've been visiting. I think we also have Ford's Theater, where President Lincoln was assassinated. A Ford's Theater coming up later this week, a few other places as well. All of them will turn into great documentaries for you guys to watch and for us to play over and over. You know, one of the things interesting that Senator Tuberville and Senator Johnson both talked about is the importance of our children, how we train our children. Congressman Glenn Grothman really hit that one hard. Congressman Glenn Grothman really hits hard what our kids are learning. You heard that. Isn't it a shame that kids are learning the garbage they're learning? Well, let's produce some programming, folks. Let's not just curse the darkness. Let's be proactive and produce some programming that you can show your kids, your grandkids, maybe for some of you, your great-grandkids, about America's history, particularly as we come up on our 250th anniversary. We want to be producing more programming like this. So again, your support helps make it possible. WorldviewFoundation.com, WorldviewFoundation.com. Busy day in our nation's capital today, but we got a lot done for you, for the network, for your children, your grandkids to watch great programming. Not just interviews, but great educational programming as well. So it's a real joy to be out here representing you and continuing to, well, bring you this kind of programming for your Worldview Tube. So thank you for your support. We'll see what tomorrow brings. Talk to you tomorrow on radio and then right back here on Brannon Howse Live. Thanks for watching. May God save America. Take care.
Moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon Howse.
And welcome.